Grandmama used to pray, oh Lord, please save them from the evil snares and all the dangers that entangle. Yea, though they walking through the valley of the shadows, just prepare and make them fit for every battle, because right, I know they bound to come, and I know they bound to fall, but in your bounty, Lord, preserve their beautiful. Right, we still survive and offer grandma's prayers, surrounded by the jungle and the lion's den. Tread light, cause these traps is inconspicuous. They hide right in plain sight, thinking we don't see them when they linger. Look right beneath the surface, then leave a trail of corpses. Crisis, prices, your life a disposable commodity. Like living in this fantasy, conditioned to believe that the system even cares whether selling CDs or walking or driving or reading. Look, they don't even need a reason. It's just you breathing and being black. When it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all, at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty, cause this gritty city got me screaming bloody murder. Said it got me screaming. This gritty city got me on some. Look, get your hand up on my pocket. Distraction, so lazy they use the same tactics. Like condom with some trinkets, just don't let them get to thinking. That light bulb gets a blinking. You know niggas and ideas. Oh dear, my dear, you may not know me, but I know you very well. Foresight, they say hindsight is 2020. Well, tell me something, we gotta see that history is on repeat. And maybe it takes a beat and a melody to speak a little louder than the message in the clouds or the essence in the air. I swear, my God is just so clear that a system driven by fear can never give us nothing but more of the same things. Oh, when it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty, cause this gritty city got me screaming. It's murder. Got me screaming, got me. This gritty city got me on some.
What's happening, good people? We are live. This is RSTV. We're live, RSTV. This is Black Power Media, one of your favorite platforms on the planet. If you can hear me, put a thumbs up in the chat, please. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. Want to make sure that this sound is correct. Okay. We are live and direct. Again, this is RSTV, Black Power Media, and we are happy to be here with you. It's our first show in a while, and we want to make sure that we deliver, as always, the best. Here we go. We want to make sure that we're giving you what you came here for, keeping you in tune and in touch and on track with what's happening on this planet, what's happening in this country, what's happening worldwide. Again, RSTV, we're live and direct. Thank you all for joining us today. It's a great day, great day, great day to be alive, great day to be a freedom fighter, great day to be on the right side of the barricades. I want to start the show off by saying that, Leonard Peltier is free. He's been released after 49 years in prison. On February 18th, he walked out of Coleman 1 federal penitentiary, federal prison, and he is back with his tribe, with his people out in North Dakota. And we're happy that Leonard's been released, because our call is always free them all. And we say free all political prisoners, and we got to continue to work on the liberation of folks like Mumia Abu Jamal. We got to continue to work on the liberation of folks like Kamal Siddiqui, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, formerly H. Rap Brown, Joy Powell, and so many others. But because that is the business. That's the business. Today happens to be the 52nd year anniversary or commemoration of the Wounded Knee occupation. 52 years back in 1973. The Wounded Knee occupation stood as a pivotal moment and it stands as a pivotal moment in what we call Indigenous or American Indian history. The, today began a 71-day standoff that brought national attention to the struggles and demands of Indigenous people. The occupation occurred on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, and it was the site. This will be called, considered the second Wounded Knee. The original Wounded Knee was 1890. The 1890 Wounded Knee massacre is where this particular occupation took place. It was spearheaded by AIM, the American Indian Movement, um, and a number of other different forces. Uh, it is said that over 200 members of the Oglala Lakota occupied the town of Wounded Knee, and they were there to protest the U.S. government's criminal activities, to protest, how natives were mistreated and continue to be mistreated, just like all indigenous people of the planet. Today, on this 52nd year anniversary or commemoration, we wanted to remember someone who many would consider a unsung hero. Uh, this particular individual was a black man, a civil rights activist who joined in on the Wounded Knee occupation. And, for years he was missing before being declared dead. He is a name that most people haven't heard, but we here at RSTV, here at Black Power Media, we want to make sure that we always put things in proper context. We want to make sure that, we bring to light some of these atrocities and tragedies and, cover-ups, because that's our job. We're not the mainstream media. We're not what we call, you know, we don't represent this criminal establishment. So we want to make sure that we continue to educate and inspire. So today, I invited a couple good people on. One is an attorney by the name of Michael Kuzma. He's out of Buffalo, New York. We also invited Cheryl, the wife of Perry Ray Robinson, Cheryl Robinson. And we have another individual that'll be joining us. So we want you all to stay tuned. But we're going to start this off by bringing attorney Michael Kuzma to the platform. Michael, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Right on, right on. So for folks who are unfamiliar with the case, unfamiliar with the situation altogether, if you don't mind, kind of give us a brief overview before we bring Cheryl on of who Perry Ray Robinson was to you and what got you involved in this particular situation, this case.
Well, I was working on Leonard Peltier's FOIA cases. I started doing that in 2001. And during the course of that work, I learned about Perry Ray Robinson. There were some articles in the Associated Press, and then there was a book that came out. I don't know if it's called Unquiet Grave. And there's it was written by Steve Hendricks, and he talks about the Ray Robinson case. And I was just aghast at what I was reading. I'm like, my God, this is terrible. And I met Ray's wife, Cheryl, and his daughter, Desiree, as well as his grandson. I was visiting Detroit, and I was fortunate enough to meet with them. And then I offered to submit FOIA requests on behalf of the Robinson family. And I made requests to the FBI as well as the Central Intelligence Agency, hoping to pry loose documents from these agencies that would assist in locating Ray's remains. And it's been quite an adventure. I've spent well over a decade now working on the case, and I've just been appalled at how most of the elected representatives, so called, that I've contacted have expressed no interest in assisting in any manner whatsoever. Well, what I have learned is it's in certain circles, whether it be the FBI or the South Dakota State Attorney General's office, they know very well what happened to Perry Ray Robinson, that he was murdered and that he was buried at Wounded Knee in spring of 1973. They have a pretty good idea of where Ray's remains are buried, but they've done nothing to bring closure for the family, and I'm just been horrified by this.
Describe. There's a picture behind you. You know, who is in that picture? What is that picture
That's
about?
Perry Ray Robinson. He was protesting in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Perry Ray and hopefully Cheryl will join us shortly. Was an activist. He we have a like here's a document I have from the CIA from 1967. They're talking about Project Merrimack, but the CIA was very aware of Ray and his political activism. He's actually referenced on the bottom of they talk, they profiled various activists. Perry Ray was just one of many, and there's no way, given the fact that Perry Ray was on the radar screen of the FBI and CIA, that they didn't know what happened, that he was traveling to Wounded Knee, and they definitely know what occurred. And these agencies have been involved in the cover-up of his murder, and they've kept his, the location of his remains secret from the family for what, nearly 52 years.
So, Mike, I mean, because you just, again, you're an attorney. You mentioned Leonard Peltier, and I know you've participated in several political cases, political prisoners, right?
Correct.
You mentioned the CIA because we as quote unquote activists, freedom fighters, so on and so forth, you know, we're all aware of counterinsurgency. We're all aware of COINTELPRO as far as the FBI's uh, program, counterinsurgency program. But you mentioned the CIA, and here it is. We're talking about someone who is virtually unknown uh, within quote unquote civil rights circles, black communities, so on and so forth. Why would the CIA be interested in someone like Perry Ray Robinson in your, what would you say?
Anyone who speaks out in America, back then or today, will be targeted. If you speak out, you would exercise your rights guaranteed by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. You will be noticed. There's not enough people who exercise rights guaranteed to them by not only the federal constitution but their state constitution as well. So if you speak out on social justice issues, if you go to bat on behalf of various political prisoners, whether it's Leonard Peltier or Jaleel Muntaqim or others, the feds will start a file on you. That's just the reality. If you write letters to the editor, participate in protests, stage public meetings, the government will, both federal, state, and local, will monitor those activities and start a dossier on you.
Right. No, and of course, again, we're used to, just hearing the FBI. And of course, we know that there are thousands of law enforcement agencies in the US, be it military, local, state, federal, whatever the case is. But it's just wild to hear, like for you to pick up a document and say, this is something from the CIA, and they were on top of what was going on with Perry Ray Robinson, someone who wasn't even considered a quote unquote militant. You understand? He wasn't
Yes.
looked at as an international freedom fighter. He wasn't looked at as a Kwame Ture or, and Imam Jamil Alameen, formerly H. Rap Brown, folks who had that international reach. So I just thought it was interesting, and I'm glad that you brought it up because our viewers need to understand, because just based off of some of the things you mentioned, oftentimes folks think that you have to be some ranting, raving lunatic to just be noticed. You can, you know, you can protest, you can write a letter to the editor, and you know, all of a sudden you have a dossier because they want to know what's going on. Um, I want to bring a good friend, Cheryl Robinson, on. Cheryl, how you doing
Yeah.
today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Man, we you know, we've had better days, but we're here today. How about that?
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to first of all thank you for joining us,
Hmm.
and thank you, Mike, for making that happen. And thanks, definitely shout out, thanks to Jennifer Jones for putting us in touch as far as Mike Kuzma and getting the ball rolling. Um, for folks who are unaware and are just hearing about, because again, this is the 52nd anniversary of Wounded Knee on this particular day, which you know, we didn't plan it like this, but this is divine decree. This is how it happened. This is the beginning of the occupation, right? Um, for folks who are not familiar with Perry Ray Robinson, give us some background on, you know, who he was, who he is to you and your family, and you know, just walk us to the point of where we are.
He began his activism when he joined the Quebec Guantanamo Peace Walk in 1963. And they were the first ones in Albany, Georgia, to uh, strike a blow at Jim Crow laws that prevented whites and blacks to vote to walk down the same side of the street. And so, because the march was integrated, they wouldn't. That was a firm principle that they would uh, abide by. So they went to jail, and they went on a fast of not taking food, and it wasn't going anywhere. They weren't getting what they needed. So Ray and some others went on a death fast, which is no food, no water, nothing. And Ray, they finally uh, took him to jail. I mean, took him to the hospital. Ray lost two molars, and they were very skinny. This was like the first fast was 22 days, and then the other fast was like, I think, 21 days. So it was like 40 days that they were fasting. And when they took to the hospital, they put feeding tubes down them and put ice cold orange juice into the feeding tube. And Ray told me it was the most excruciating pain that he had ever felt in his whole life.
Wow.
And but they ended up winning, and were able to break the Jim Crow segregation laws. And AJ Muskie was a backer of the march, and they went through all of the South and into Cuba. And the idea was that was part of the peace movement, that Fellowship of Reconciliation, and AJ Musty, Dave Dellinger. I don't know if you remember him, but anyway, from that, uh, they got out of jail. They went on the march. They recuperated, got their weight back, and got their health back. And then Ray joined CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, and he worked alongside SNCC and CORE in the South. He worked in Mississippi and Georgia, but he hated Alabama. He was just absolutely He's just like, oh my God. And where did we end up? We ended up in Alabama, outside Selma, in the cradle of the Confederacy. And I'm raising my kids there, and I'm going, oh Jesus. Anyway, we ended up on a farm, 10 acres, and we were growing food, and it was kind of like a retreat where people it came from the excuse me, I've had a stroke, so I'm having a little hard time
Good. Take your
speaking.
time. That's okay.
So anyway, we had like a retreat for people to come and visit, and we grew food for the Black Panther Party in New Orleans. And this was during the time when all the men in New Orleans had been arrested, and the party was being run by the women. So they were under a lot of duress and a lot of stress. And so we were providing the food for their free breakfast programs and their other, food bank programs and everything. And we were also with Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And they came down because we were under threat of the Ku Klux Klan. 3 crosses were burned, and each cross has a different meaning. The last one being you're dead. Anyway, they would firebomb our house. Our house was firebombed 3 times, and so they came and they did a perimeter check, and they gave us a security plan so that we could defend ourselves. Because though Ray came out of the pacifist movement, we had firearms to defend ourselves. And so they had us, dig foxholes and taught me how to shoot, and Ray to shoot. I got pretty good shot, and I'm a pretty good shot today. Anyway,
Just in
I
case,
can
right?
blow 'em. When I go with my grandkids, I can blow them. I already saved my targets, Anyway, one time, the white boys came back and started shooting up the house, and I was only one there, and I had to return fire. I didn't miss them. I heard that the fire hit the car, but I didn't I didn't hit them because I would be under the jail now. I'd hit them, But anyway, Ray was a very strong figure in the community, organizing the people. We were throughout the South after slavery, after the Civil War. Black people came together in Black enclaves to resist the backlash after Reconstruction. And we lived in one of those Black enclaves. It was called, and it's still today, Boga Chitto. And most everybody had the same last name. Not that they were related, but because they came from the same plantations, And anyway, it was a good life, except for the damn Klan when they came and messed with us, But anyway, Ray was invited to give a report. The Vietnam veterans came, and we were starting a clinic. We had done health surveys in the area because the access to healthcare was really poor. The only person that they had in the area was a Black doctor, and he had white and black doors. You can't, it was segregated. So we started that and got two VVW nurses to come down and help out with the serving and helping, doing house calls uh, in the community. So we were starting a clinic, and Ray went to the conference in Taos, New Mexico, to give a report to the VVAW conference. And in that conference, there was somebody from Wounded Knee that came down and said, "We're under a lot of stress here. We need some help to come and help. We need people to replace people that have left Wounded Knee." And Ray said, "Sure, I'll go." I didn't agree. I didn't think it was a good idea. But Ray went, and the day after he had backpacked into Wounded Knee, he was shot and killed. And so I think his death, and this is, I have some evidence, I think I could say, that this was all part of a COINTELPRO to cover up his death, because there were informants with inside Wounded Knee. And I think one of the informants shot him. So they were protecting their confidential informant. The AIM was riddled with informants, some of which were found out, and some today that aren't even known today. So they won't give us the information about who. We think we know who it was who shot Ray and buried him. But
I want to.
go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you say that he was shot and killed a day after that he was on Wounded Knee?
Yeah, he got in. He backpacked in, and the next day he was shot.
Okay, and I'm glad you clarifying that, because just from what we've read, so on and so forth, they make it look like he had been there for a while, and it
No,
was.
no.
So this
The
was like. Go ahead.
reason
I'm
that,
sorry.
excuse me, the reason we know that is because Janie Waters, who was a community member of ours in Bogota, went with him to the conference and also backpacked into Wounded Knee. Not with Ray, but the next day that she came in behind him. And when she came in, she was looking around for Ray. Where's Ray? Where? And they told her, "Shut your mouth, or we're going to kill you." And she was so scared. When she came back after the siege was lifted, when she came back, she was so scared. She went to Rose Sanders' house. Rose Sanders is a famous
Fire
activist.
Rose.
Yeah. Do you know
Okay.
Rose?
I've met her. Matter of fact, I host, and I was just telling Mike this. I host events down in Selma for Bloody Sunday, so I know
Okay,
that.
there you go. Well,
Yeah,
Rose
yeah.
Sanders, she went to Rose Sanders and stayed with Rose Sanders' house for 2 weeks because she was so she was just petrified. She thought they were coming after her,
Mm.
and she wouldn't
So
dare come to the farm because she thought that they were coming back this way. Anyway, she it scared her so bad. But
so yeah.
that was very telling, I think.
So I mean, so and I didn't mean to cut you off,
That's
but
all right.
I just wanted clarity for the viewers and myself and everyone else, because of course, we get that's why we like to go straight to the source, opposed to, you know, we can read anything, and it seemed
Yeah,
like, it was day 21 or day 31, because different reports, there was, different statements that was allegedly made. So, to your understanding, so he gets there, Perry Ray Robinson, your husband, he gets to Wounded Knee, and he's killed the next day.
Yeah.
From what happens then? Because for a while he was presumed missing, or what?
Well,
Get into that.
I didn't know. I just knew he didn't come home. So a month, I think about a month or two later, uh, I got some family members, his brother and his nephew, to go with me out there to try to find him, to find something that was, and everybody, it was weird. I mean, I'm used to going around new movement events, and you know, people were loosey goosey back then. I mean, and even people in the Black Liberation movement, and it was different, and it was different in sort of. I go into the AIM office with the Bellecourt brothers, and they look at me with this stone face, with minimal speech. We don't know what you're talking about. We don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, what's going on? What's with these folk,
So they said, we don't know what you're talking about.
Huh?
They said, we don't know what you're talking about. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. And just really strange. And then I saw the way that they acted with women in the office, in the AIM office. It was just, oh my God. Get me some coffee. What? I mean, people in the black movement were kind of bad about, I mean, Stokely was just terrible, but in terms on the woman question. But that was just like, give me some coffee. Like, shut the fuck up. Jesus.
we,
Anyway,
we, we,
that
we,
didn't
we,
go good. I said, well, we got some issues here, man. We got some serious issues. Anyway, we left the AIM office. We went to Rapid City. We went to AIM. I mean to Pine Ridge, and then I went to Crow Dog's place. Justin's Justin is Crow Dog's grandson, and I told him this story, and he said, "Yeah, it sounds like Grandpa." Anyway, Leonard Crow Dog was the medicine man for AIM, right? And so we went to his place, and we said we'd like to talk to him and stuff. And somebody came out and said, "No, he's not here. He's over there," which was way on the other side of the reservation, right? Which is about 20, 30 miles away. So we're going over there. We get over there, and they say, "Oh, no, he's not there. He's over there." They, finally, we said, I think this is, we're getting played here, you know? And it's funny now, but it wasn't funny then.
right.
But
So
anyway.
we have Justin with us as well. I'm going to bring Justin to the stage. Justin, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. So
Yeah, I
Justin,
apologize that my camera's not on. I think it might be my internet connection I'm having. I'm out in the
okay.
middle of doing
Hi,
this.
Justin.
Unchi, it's good to see you. Thank you for inviting me on. I know it was last minute, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
No doubt. So Justin, definitely, welcome on board the platform. You know, for the viewers, tell the people who you are and why you're here today.
Well, I was at work about, I don't know, an hour and a half ago maybe, and I think I got a call from Mike, and he said, "Hey, there's an interview coming up with Cheryl, and Cheryl would like you to come on." I said, I'll do the best I can. But I started hearing about Ray's case maybe 15, 16, 17, between 15 and 20 years ago. I started learning about Ray Robinson. And I started learning about Ray Robinson because of the case and the trials that were taking place in the Anime Aquash murder. Anime Aquash was murdered in December of 1975, and her body was actually discovered February 24th, which would have just been a few days ago, 1976. And that murder went unsolved for decades. And the first conviction would have been right around 2004, and then I believe the next conviction came around 2010 or 11. And a lot of the information about Ray Robinson started coming out during the investigation of Anime. So that's how I learned about it. But I live here in Rosebud, South Dakota. Cheryl mentioned Crow Dog as being my grandfather. He's a relative of Grandpa by marriage, but I know him very well. He was the spiritual leader of the American Indian movement. And the American Indian movement, they did a lot of beautiful things, and they did a lot of good things for Indian people. But, there were some things that were not so good, and that's with any movement. So in 1968, the American Indian movement was formed in Minneapolis, and they kind of took a lot of their moves from learning from Huey Newton and the Black Panthers. Huey P. Newton, he didn't have a law book in one hand and a gun in the other, and he was protecting his people. And along Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis is where a lot of Indian people and a lot of the Indian bars were located, and the Minneapolis Police Department would pull a paddy wagon up to the back door of a bar at closing time and just load it up with Indian people and beat them up, fill the jails. And what they were doing was they were filling quotas for their work programs, and it's modern day slavery. And they were doing that with people of color, and Indian people got tired of it. And it was a big time in American history where a lot of people were fighting for their rights.
That's right.
So Indian people in Minneapolis, they started meeting, and at first they were going to call themselves the Concerned Indian Americans, but that acronym wouldn't have worked out so well. So a lady said, you guys are always aiming to do this and aiming to do that. So they called themselves the American Indian Movement. And there was founders such as Dennis Banks and the Belcourt brothers, and many others in the Minneapolis Indian community. And they bought some cars and they painted them red, and they started street patrols just like the Panthers were doing, and they were protecting their people. They were patrolling the police because of police brutality. That's how AIM started. How did AIM come to South Dakota? 1972, another man named Raymond Yellow Thunder, was killed in a border town of Gordon, Nebraska, border town of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. During the 50s, 60s, 70s, an Indian could not walk in the border town of a reservation without being accosted or brutalized by any non-person of color that wanted to hurt them. And they would get away with it. Two non-Indian brothers, two white ranchers, picked up Raymond and started beating him up. And then one of their girlfriends joined in. They threw Raymond Yellow Thunder in the trunk of a car. They beat him again. They burned him with cigarettes. They stripped him down. They heard a Valentine dance was going on at a VFW hall, so they pulled up to a side door and they shoved him in half naked, made him dance. He was beat, and then he walked out into the cold, and he was found dead a few days later. The men and the woman that murdered him, they were going to walk, and the Oglalas were tired of it, and they didn't know who to call, so they called the American Indian Movement for help. And that's when the American Indian Movement first came to Pine Ridge, was 1972, a year before the takeover of Wounded Knee, February 1972. And then again, in right around November of 1972, or maybe even 1973, I'm sorry, a little bit sooner, Wesley Badheart Bull was killed in Buffalo Gap, South Dakota, by a white man that was heard earlier that night saying, "I'm going to get myself an engine." And he stabbed Wesley Badheart Bull in the heart. So during the trial of the murderers of Wesley Badheart Bull, AIM came to Custer, South Dakota, and a riot ensued because they were only going to charge this man with second-degree manslaughter when it was evidently first-degree murder. And they were only going to charge this man with second-degree manslaughter. So we had no one to call. The Lakota people had no one to call, and AIM came, and the courthouse, and I believe the town hall or the one of the town buildings was burned down in Custer. It was a riot. Wesley Badhart, Bull's mother, actually spent a few months in jail, and the men that killed her son did not spend a day. They walked. So again, AIM was there to stand up for Indian people. And then in all this time in the Pine Ridge Reservation, Dick Wilson administration was keeping all the federal funds. And you got to remember, Pine Ridge is the poorest place in the United States. And they were keeping any bit of money that came into these impoverished people. And this poverty is by design, mind you. So this systemic poverty is by design. And the money was being kept by a corrupt puppet government that was set up by the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional full-blood people, the descendants of the ones that fought the battles in the 1800s that won those treaty rights, they were being raped, murdered, and living in the communities with pennies, not even that to rub together, while the mixed bloods kept the money and lived under a IRA government and that was enforced upon them. So they had no one to help them, and there was a force there called the Goon Squad, Guardians of the Oglala Nation. That was the paramilitary group funded by Dick Wilson through getting money through grants and other ways to fund this group, and they were just raining terror on the reservation. So who do they call? They called AIM. And you got to also remember there's a big difference between Black civil rights and Indian rights. At that time, our African American Black relatives were coming from a place where they're trying to get rights within the system. And Indian people were coming from a place where there was treaties signed. A treaty can only be signed between two sovereign nations. So that's a totally different set of rights than the civil rights that were. So I don't know if you can understand the difference. It's a huge difference in the rights that are being fought for, nation to nation. Sovereignty we were talking about. That's a lot different than so that's what they wanted in Pine Ridge. They wanted to get rid of that puppet government and reinstate their treaty government, their traditional chiefs. So they called AIM to do that. And they went and they had a meeting in a place called Calico, and the women said, what happened to the warrior spirits of our ancestors? And a young man named Pedro Bissonette, who led the Oglala Sioux civil rights organization called OSCRO, stood up and he said, we're right here. And the Oglalas made the move, and they got in a caravan, and they knew that the Pine Ridge town of Pine Ridge, where the government was and the tribal building was just full of guns, full of feds, full of goons. They called it Fort Wilson. They could not take that over. So they had a caravan, and they were actually talking about going to Porcupine, and they pulled into Wounded Knee, and that next morning they were surrounded by feds. They were surrounded by APCs, and they took over the town of Wounded Knee. They went in. They took over the trading post. There was some Akia. There were some people living there, and unfortunately there was hostages that were taken. And when the feds came in and asked those hostages if they wanted to leave, the hostages said no. The hostages said, if we leave, you're going to kill all these people. So that was what led up to the Wounded Knee occupation. After the Wounded Knee occupation, there were several hundred murders, and Pine Ridge had the highest murder capita rate in the United States at that time. They called it the Reign of Terror. And Michael referenced the book called The Unquiet Grave by, I believe the author's name is Stephen Hendricks. It's a very, very good account of what took place during that time. So Ray came in there, and there's a lot of different rumors and stories of what happened, but he wasn't there very long, 24 hours maybe. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna reveal any details because I'm hoping to get him home, and I'm hoping to get him home soon, while Cheryl can see it. So I don't want to get any details that's going to jeopardize anything that we have going on. But there's hope. I have hope. I recently reached out to Mike and reached out to Cheryl, and I love talking to them. I talk to Cheryl regularly. We had a good conversation yesterday, and I always tell her, you know, I'm not going to make any promises, but I'm going to make hella noise, and I'm going to make hella noise right here where Ray's bones are at. He's right up the road from me, and he's got a friend close by. I started calling Cheryl Unchi. That means grandma. That's how I see her. And I have a lot of respect for her. That man came here to help us, and he's laying there, and he's been laying there, and he needs to go home. It's time for him to go home, and I don't, you know, I don't want to put anybody down. I don't want to say anything negative. I want to always keep a positive outlook because that's who and what I am. But I believe in accountability, and I believe in those spiritual laws of the universe, and for the good things that the American Indian movement did, I think some accountability needs to take place. And if anybody knows anything that can help get this man home and help us with our mission that we have now, you know, tell us, and let's send Ray home. He's a hero.
You know, Justin, I definitely, you know, we appreciate the history of AIM. You know, that's absolutely necessary. The American Indian movement. And we appreciate, you know, giving some backstory on Wounded Knee. Again, today is the 52nd year anniversary commemoration of Wounded Knee, the second Wounded Knee, 1973, you know, when the occupation began. And we're here. And I want, just for the record, we want folks to be clear that this is by no means, and I'm sure we've kind of made it clear, but we want to make it absolutely clear. This is not against AIM. It's not against the American Indian movement. It's not to take away anything from Wounded Knee. However, at the same time, we cannot rewrite history. We can't erase history. This country, built on bloodshed, the blood of indigenous people here, blood of indigenous people of the world, has been spilled on this land, right? And there are folks, you know, you mentioned some who work with the federal government, just being quite clear. There are agent provocateurs in
Yeah.
pretty much all effective ranks that have came through this particular country, that through the world. This is how enemies win war. They need counterinsurgency. So
Right.
there's always certain individuals in the pot who may not belong in the pot. And what they do is, you know, they make efforts to point fingers at others to take the heat off themselves. I appreciate the fact that you all are fighting on behalf of Perry Ray Robinson. We understand why Cheryl would be, because of course that was her husband, right? And Justin just explained, you know, his piece on spirituality and accountability, which leads me to Mike, you know, Mike Kuzma. You know, you heard about this case. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you said about 15 years ago, somewhere near there.
Correct. It was because of my work on Leonard Peltier's case.
Indeed. So for you, you know, just looking at this particular situation, why is this case important to you? Why would you get involved? Because you was already dealing with what was going on with Leonard, and we already know, shout out to Leonard. Leonard's a handful by himself. You know what I'm saying? Court-wise, or just being Leonard. We love Leonard. So, you know, but what really, you know, what attracted you to this? And attraction might not be the best word, but what made you want to get involved and seek justice and seek, you know, and bring the spirit and the energy of Perry Ray Robinson not only to the forefront, but as Justin said, to bring him home? What made you want to get involved And why are you here?
I just thought it was just so unjust, so unfair. Perry Ray goes to Wounded Knee to show his solidarity with his red brothers. He ends up getting murdered, as Cheryl indicated, probably by an FBI snitch. And I was just, as I mentioned earlier, I I just found it so maddening, frustrating that the government covered this up and actually put roadblocks in place to keep the Robinson family from finding Perry Ray's remains. And I think the American people have a right to know what was done in their name, and they have a right to know uh, what happened to Ray, what he did, what happened to him because of his political activism. And if you look at some of the cases I've taken on throughout my legal career, I didn't get involved in the law to get rich or to make money. I saw the law as a tool to bring about social, political, and economic change. I've been involved in, the Occupy movement. There's a bookstore here in Buffalo that was targeted by the FBI. It's called Burning Books. They had two informants move above the bookstore. I've been representing dear friends of mine, but they were horribly targeted by the FBI and two of their snitches. What happened to Jaleel Muntakim is outrageous. Fortunately, he was liberated from the New York State prison system. I was targeted when I was a young man. I wrote a letter to the editor of one of the local newspapers. And did I know the IRS had something called a publications monitoring program?
Oh,
And all these agencies do. But in my case, a massive probe was started on me. My mother was followed to work by IRS special agents. My FBI file, depending on what you want to believe, is well over 3,000 pages.
oh my.
So I
We
think
got a bad guy here, y'all. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, so the system is in need of radical reform, and this case just I don't know anyone could learn about this case and just sit still and do nothing. And I felt compelled to get involved, and that's why I've been involved now for well over a decade. And we've brought a colleague of mine, Dare Irwin, the way to keep costs down. I was the requester. I made requests regarding Perry Ray Robinson. And then we were able to bring the lawsuits in Buffalo, and a colleague, a dear friend of mine, it's like a brother to me, who's a fellow activist, Dare Irwin, was my attorney. And we sued the FBI in 2013. And then we sued the FBI again in 2019. But I don't know. I haven't been kicked in the head enough times. When the first FOIA case went up to the Second Circuit, I thought there's parts of Ray's file that are missing. There was like this June mail, which is a file where the FBI kept all their dirty tricks in that were employed against activists. That was missing. And I thought, well, the Second Circuit in New York City, they'll stand up and take notice. They were laughing at us. The one judge, as Clinton appointee, was just terrible. As Darren Barry Backrack assisted as well. He's based in Massachusetts. But they're complicit in the cover-up because there's still many, many pages that are being withheld. And what's the secret? Why can't these records be liberated? Why can't they be provided to me or to Ray's family? It's outrageous. And I think people should be up in arms about this.
There was, I mean, it wasn't too recently that the FBI, correct me if I'm wrong, confirmed or admitted that Ray was dead. Is that correct? How long did it take before they actually said that, it is, he had been declared dead or because unless I read wrong, he was considered missing for a while. Is that correct?
Yeah. There was a letter that they wrote. I wrote President Trump first term. He wrote the FBI, and they responded to me, and they indicated that the investigation was closed. Off the top of my head, I don't recall. Perhaps you do, Cheryl, but I think they admitted that the investigation was closed in 2010, 20 was something like that. And then they released some documents that got a lot of play in the New York Times and various other media outlets. But the investigation is closed. There's no active probe on the part of the FBI, and state authorities aren't doing anything. It was my understanding that at one point the state of South Dakota wanted to prosecute someone, but that was nixed.
Yeah, from Washington.
Correct.
So you all, it seems to be, because Justin alluded to knowing where Perry Ray Robinson is buried. I spoke to Mike prior to the call. I mean, before we got on here. I don't know if you all would want to share, like, where do you believe or where do you know that he's buried? And he was buried in a unique way, I understand. Would anyone like to speak on that?
I would like to talk about that a little bit. He was not buried laying down in a normal grave. I'll say that. And I will say that there's at least 2 possible locations that are pretty solid right now, based on like 302 field reports and different things that were discovered through the documents that Mike mentioned through the FOIA requests and different eyewitness accounts, people coming forward through over the years. But you got to remember, this was in the late winter, early spring in South Dakota. And in one of the interviews with a confidential witness who was working the Annie Mae case, said that the person who buried Ray was gone for about 5 hours. You're not going to dig a hole in frozen ground and bury a man in 5 hours. So there's possibly some holes that were probably already there. So there's some locations that are pretty confident where he's at. And that's as far as I'm willing to go. So if Cheryl or Mike want to go any further, that's up to them. Yeah.
No, I take your lead, Justin.
The reason why I'm saying that is we've got a lot of hope right now, and I don't want to jeopardize anything.
Cool.
Yeah. I would just note for the record is that the land up until Justin, correct me, up until a few years ago was in private hands.
Correct. Right. Up until September of 2022, the land was owned by the Chajinski family. And he was asking an outrageous amount, like $4.5 million for that land.
Yeah.
And he would just never let anybody look, right? And he was asking so much money because the burial site, the mass grave of the Wounded Knee massacre was there. It's a historical site, and he had rumors of other historical things being there. And then in September 2022, he settled for $500,000 on a joint sale from the Oglala Sioux tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, because the people that are laying in Wounded Knee actually come from the Minihoju and the Hunkpapa people, which come from Cheyenne River and the Standing Rock reservations today. So those are their relatives up in Cheyenne River that are laying in that mass grave. So they have some concerns over that land, and they were willing to become partial landowners. So that land is owned by the Oglala Sioux tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe as of just recently.
I appreciate that, and we appreciate you telling Michael how to say the last name, because I don't think he knew how to say the last name of the previous owner.
Yeah, I've had some trouble saying it too. I almost said the Polish last name, but I wanted to have a little respect and actually try to say it. So I think it's Chajinski. Does that sound right, Mike?
That's close enough.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But it was the
We'll settle for that,
Gildersleeve
right, Mike?
estate, and it was Gildersleeve land, and I think the Chajinskis were the son-in-law or something like that, the children or something of the Gildersleeves. Yeah.
No doubt. Well, we definitely appreciate you all coming on to talk about Perry Ray Robinson, and we're hoping that our listeners, our viewers, will not only honor his name, but follow whatever lead or plan of action that you all may have for there to be some sort of justice for Ray Robinson. But not only that, as Justin pointed out, and I'm sure Cheryl would agree, him getting a proper burial and being near those he loved. Is there anything that you all want to add before we wrap in
I
regards
want
to
to
how we
thank you
can
very,
assist?
very much for your interest in the case and the fact that, you know, we all come at it from a similar point of view.
Yes.
I really, really appreciate that, brother.
Yes. No, we appreciate you for being steadfast and not just accepting whatever the narrative that was delivered and how it was delivered, and also bringing on folks like Mike and Justin, because clearly, you know like so many unsung heroes who've existed and have been left in unmarked graves, it's good to be able to a uh, put a sticker, in the books of history. It's
Yeah.
good to put a place mark for Ray Robinson, because of the fact that he's an ancestor and he's someone who came in, from what we've learned from you today, in the name of justice, in the name of freedom, in the name of equality, the work he did, and along with yourself in regards to civil rights, human rights, etc. And for Justin, indeed, we're clear about the difference in sovereignty and civil rights. Uh, I come from folks who are pro sovereignty. We believe in nation building and nationhood, and so I wanted to clarify that, because sometimes folks, we're not an anomaly. We don't put everybody in the same box and say that this is this, or this is the nonviolent movement, so on and so forth. Many of us understand, you know, nation building, and that's what we fight for. And unfortunately, within the confines of this rotten system in which we live under, in which we all have had our stake and place in fighting for liberation, we know that they will determine and dictate the parameters and the rules of engagement. And oftentimes that doesn't fit, in the in our circle of life, of peace. So again, we thank you all for playing a role and being a part of this journey and this mission for justice. Um, Before we go, Cheryl, who are these people in this picture?
Well, that little girl is my daughter Desiree, and she was born in 1966. And the little boy is my son Dieter, and he's being held by his father Ray Robinson.
Right on.
Yeah.
And Ray was how old when he went to Wounded Knee?
Oh dear, I'd have to figure it out. I don't.
It's all good. He was in his 30s though, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, we can start with that. I ain't, but but definitely we salute
Yeah.
Ray Robinson. Uh, Thank you, Michael, for for setting it up, putting us together. I suspect
If
that
I
this won't.
may,
Yes.
for some great information about the Robinson case, Phil Fairbanks, a dear friend, a retired reporter from the Buffalo News, did a couple of great stories about the case. So you do a Google search, Phil Fairbanks, Ray Robinson, and if anyone needs to reach me, my website's michaelkuzma.com, and you can fill out a contact form. So if there's any ideas or any information regarding Ray's case you'd like to share, I'm all ears. And I want to thank you for having us. I'd like to thank Cheryl for coming on, Justin for his great assistance, and never give up. Just keep fighting. And I think 2025, I've told Cheryl this and Justin, this is the year we bring Ray home. I'm confident. I think it's going to be a great year.
I think Michael's right. I think that this is
And shows like this will
oh
help.
yeah, no, we're grateful, and we, you know, I don't think this would be the last time we hear about this case. And I agree, 2025 is a great year to bring Perry Ray Robinson home, and for folks like myself, and Jennifer and Maura Metzer-Cohen and so on and so forth, you know, we have to fight on all levels. You know, the Mike Kuzmas, you know, the Cheryl Robinsons, the Justins, and so many others. I would not feel right myself as a quote unquote freedom fighter, as a black man, as an African in this country, fighting on behalf of folks like Leonard Peltier, fighting on behalf of folks who are indigenous to the planet, and not see someone like Perry Ray Robinson, who I can see myself in,
Yeah.
and ignore this case and ignore this fight. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So for me, I take it personal because of the fact that I see this man who was about freedom. And from the picture that we're looking at behind Michael, you know, he didn't seem to be a man who had a lot of fear in his heart.
No, he didn't.
So we respect that. So we stand by his family, his comrades, and we're looking forward to that phone call saying, all right, we gotta go get Perry Ray Robinson.
I certainly hope so.
Thank you all for joining us here today. This is RSTV, Black Power Media. We're joined by Cheryl Buswell Robinson, attorney Michael Kuzma, and Justin. I'm Kalonji Changa, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. We have a lot of great shows coming up. Make sure that you check in, tune in with us. You know, we're gonna make sure that we keep the movement moving. Till next time, this is RSTV. Be strong. Be bold. Peace.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed. On my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and their strings that they pull, then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish, what tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution, it's real solutions. What we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. When my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution, it's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution.